You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners, since their season has ended, have lost 2 to the transfer portal. True freshman Corri Hicks announced on Tuesday evening that she would be entering the portal. And then on Wednesday, it was Maya Bland, outfielder, after her sophomore season entering the portal. Both really didn't play significant roles for the Sooners this year. They both had, big hits, had home runs. They put up some numbers in some pinch hit situations, but just didn't play a ton. Maya Bland was, for the most part, a pinch runner, but she did have several home runs this season, including one against Oklahoma State, one against Alabama. So it has some potential, a lot of potential to be a really good player at the collegiate level. Just hasn't been able to break into the lineup as an everyday player. Corri Hicks, the catcher / first baseman, couldn't really break into the lineup on a regular basis either. Patty Gasso, Jennifer Rocha, JT Gasso really wanted to go with Isabella Emmerling. And, despite the batting average, despite some of the miscues behind the plate, they felt more comfortable with her as their catcher on an everyday basis. And so, neither one of those two were going to see big time innings for Oklahoma. Emmerling can come back next year. For the most part, all of Oklahoma's outfield is due to come back. Cassidy Pickering and Abigail Dayton, Hannah Core. You're also looking at Tia Malloy is going to be back coming off of her true freshman season. Sydney Barker can play some outfield for you. So you've got a lot of really good options still available to you. And then you look at what Oklahoma has coming in the 2025 class, the number 1 class, according to On3 and Softball America. Well, they've got the number 1 player in the nation, Kai Miner, coming in from Orange Lutheran in Irvine, California. She's the number 1 player. She plays outfield. So there's potential that she could come in and get some innings right away with the Oklahoma Sooners. And then you have the number 1 catcher in the nation in Kendall Wells out of Athens, Georgia, joining the Sooners in 2020 for the 2026 season, but in 2025. So you could kind of maybe see the writing on the wall a little bit. Maybe Corri Hicks was going to be able to get in and break into the lineup. Maybe not. If not, you still feel really good about your catching situation. If Emmerling's able to improve her batting average a little bit, find some more clutch hits, more timely hitting, then, maybe she'd, be in better shape as an everyday catcher. But you've got to get a little bit more production out of the catcher spot than you got this year. And, maybe with the true freshman like Kendall Wells, maybe she can come in and make a significant impact right away. But aside from, and Chaney Helton will be back to play in the outfield as well. I'm just looking at the roster to look at who else might be back. So again, Emmerling, Riley Zach, she can play some catcher for you. So you have some catcher options still in-house, even with Corri Hicks leaving. And then again, you've got Kendall Wells joining the team this next year. You've got Kai Miner joining the outfield group. So it's still a strong team and strong roster, despite these transfer portal departures. And Oklahoma's going to be in the portal. They're going to be active again. They usually are. They're not going to have to be as active this year unless they look for just upgrades at certain spots, whether it's at catcher. Maybe if they don't want to rely on a true freshman or on Riley Zach to catch every day, maybe they look at upgrading from Isabella Emmerling. But based on what we know about Oklahoma, they're going to stay loyal. And then you look at, the pitching situation. Okay, Sam Landry's off to the AUSL. And you may need to look at a veteran option. You still have Kirsten Deal. You still have Peyton Monticelli. You've got Audrey Lowry. So you've got some strong pitchers still on the roster. Well, then you're adding, the number 1 pitcher in America and Alyssa Parker in the 2025 class out of Pensacola, Oklahoma. And then you're also adding Berkeley Zach out of Michigan, the number 5 pitcher in America. So maybe you don't need to go into the portal to add a veteran arm. We'll see. I mean, there's already some really good, veteran options out there. UCLA's, I want to say it's Caitlin. I'm blanking on the name right now, but I'm going to find it real quick. Caitlin Terry, she was a freshman All-American. She went 20-5 this season with the Bruins. She's entering the portal, so that could be an option. They're going to be good options after Nyjah Kennedy goes out and sets the market at $1 million for obviously the number 1 pitcher in softball. But the market for pitchers in general is going to be pretty high because everybody's looking for them. You're going to have teams that are going to go out there and they're going to spend big on pitching. And if there's a place that Oklahoma may need to go and be aggressive, it's pitcher. If you're not sure where you're going to be, I think that's a place that you really need to address, because this year in particular, you saw down the stretch, they didn't really feel great about their pitching options outside of Sam Landry. If you could add 2 starters, I mean, you're losing Isabella Smith, you're losing Sam Landry. You might need to add 2 players that can be starters for you. If you're not sure that Audrey Lowry is going to be ready to go and be that secondary starter, or if Kirsten Deal isn't able to up her game and be that secondary starter, we'll see. But, this roster is still set up so well to be a contender in 2020, 2026 and 2027 and 2028, because Patty Gasso just recruits at such a high level. The number 1 class in the 2025 class, the number 2 class currently in the 2026 recruiting class still has an opportunity to improve that before softball signing day in the fall. So yeah, we'll see what Oklahoma does. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another 2, maybe 3 portal entries beyond what we've seen. But right now, Corri Hicks gone, Maya Bland gone. But again, Oklahoma is deep at both of those spots moving forward, not just with what they have on the roster now, but with what they're adding through the 2025 recruiting class. Yeah. Oh, let's talk, man. Obstruction is just getting more and more ridiculous all the time. If you watched the game 1 of the Women's College World Series Championship Series between Texas and Texas Tech, there was another ridiculous obstruction call on a play at second base. It was a stolen base attempt by Texas Tech, and Reese Atwood just throws a dart. Leanne Good catches it. She's upfield. She's moving up the line from second base as she goes to catch it, but is barely inside the base path, not even close to obstructing the base runner, and isn't in their way, isn't going to come in contact with them. The only contact she makes is by applying the tag, and gets called for obstruction and allows Texas Tech to have that second base, which ultimately leads to a run. And it's just another sign that the NCAA has to significantly overhaul obstruction. You've got to, because umpires are not calling it within the spirit of what it was intended to be, which was an avenue for player safety. They didn't want big time collisions on the bag. They didn't want collisions at home plate. They wanted people to try and avoid that contact. But when players are operating within the spirit of it and you're still calling them for obstruction, that's when it gets a little bit ridiculous. This is a moment that, again, created controversy in what was otherwise a really great game between Nyjah Kennedy and Tegan Caven, Texas and Texas Tech. And yet what everybody's talking about is obstruction. Now they're also talking about Nyjah Kennedy's inability to, throw an intentional walk, Reese Atwood taking advantage of a ball right down the middle and driving in the winning runs. You can't let obstruction become what targeting is to college football. The game is growing so much that allowing obstruction to be a part of the conversation, the way that the NCAA has, the way that the umpiring crews have, is just absolutely ridiculous. The game is so good right now. It's so good. There's so many talented players across college softball that we're seeing obstruction become more and more a part of the discussion. It happened just, a few games ago between Oregon and UCLA as well, where a big moment was taken off the board because of obstruction. Again, in an instant where it was totally misapplied because the player was out, dead to rights, and there was nothing that they were going to be able to do. The catcher was exactly where they needed to be, and the player was out. There's no other way for players to play that. So they just got to ditch the rule altogether because it's a bad rule and umpires are misapplying it all the time and creating controversy in games that are absolutely fantastic. Don't let the sport get marred by terrible rules and terrible officiating. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants what's happening right now with the obstruction call. So fix this, NCAA. Fix it. Patty Gasso, make a phone call. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay, my buddy, at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. A lot of softball coverage happening right now on SoonersWire.com. Even though the season has ended for Oklahoma, we still got portal stuff happening. We're still kind of in the recovery period, so to speak, for what happened with the Oklahoma Sooners in the Women's College World Series. Make sure you follow the show at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, for my buddy Jay on vacation, I'm John Williams. Talk to you then. Boomer Sooner.